Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of Before Coffee. Today's day is Thursday's 13. We're going to count down 13 reasons why 13 is a good number, 13 good things that are 13. It's related to the number 13 and it's good. It's not bad. It's not like Friday the 13th. This is Before Coffee, the father and daughter comprehensive news of Planet Earth podcast, where we look up our stories 10 to 15 minutes before we start the show, and we haven't had any caffeine. The whole point is that we roll out of bed, tell you the news, and then go back to sleep. Well, one of us goes back to sleep. It's the middle of the day for me. So let's get started with the show with our headlines for today. Today on Before Coffee, Lukashenko sworn in again as Belarus's president, tells critics, "You have no future."
And Bernie Sanders is fighting oligarchy. Oligarchy tour is organizing too.
Arming Europe. What are the plans and can the EU afford it?
And on Thursday's 13, we're going to talk about the best 13s in our 13th edition of Thursday 13 this year.
For culture news, why bloated budgets mean open world games are starting to think small, but mighty.
And it's National Scribble Day, and if you're right like me, every day is National Scribble Day. On March 27th, 2025, on Before Coffee.
Yeah, I'm also a pretty big scribbler, though. I don't know if you have this. Maybe it's because we're, older than the computer age, but I remember things way better if I write it down with my hand, even if it is in scribbles. Than if I type it down in a document, right? If I type down, remember to go to my doctor's appointment, I won't remember it all. But if I write it down somewhere, even anywhere on a random piece of paper, I'll remember it.
Yeah, remember it is. Yeah. In my case, I scribble so bad I have no idea what I wrote.
And you don't remember it either.
Right. I had a great idea, but I have no idea what that word is.
Gloomfully? Hieroglyphics.
Gloomfully's a word? Gloomfully. Well, why not? Anyway.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Well, let's start with the show, of course, with our favorite thing, a segue, so we know what the hell to say.
Yeah. See if I need a pen for this first section.
Here. I love wheels, man. Who needs decisions when you got a wheel?
That's right. Let's have it.
All right, you're going to have to write me a haiku.
Oh, okay.
Oh, sorry about that. First story is coming out of, Belarus, as they've sworn in Lukashenko again for a 7th consecutive authoritarian leadership. And of course, he has to gloat about how he's so going to be president until maybe after he dies, too. They'll just put a ghost up there. This is by Gavin Blackburn with AP on Euronews. Lukashenko marked 3 decades in power. That's not normal. Last year, and his political opponents have denounced the tightly orchestrated presidential election on the 26th of January as a farce. Yeah, why don't you just say you're king of Belarus? At least you won't be joking around that you actually have an election. Alexander Lukashenko has been sworn in for a 7th consecutive term as president of Belarus at a ceremony in the capital of Minsk. During the ceremony, Lukashenko poked fun at those who call him Europe's last dictator by claiming Belarus has more democracy than those who cast themselves as its models. Okay, sure, whatever, dude. Is it opposite day? Wait, that's later in the year. Yeah.
Right.
Half of the world is dreaming about our dictatorship, the dictatorship of real business and interest of our people. Yeah, because Lukashenko said in his inauguration speech in Independent Palace. I can also say some random buzzwords and people will agree with me. Lukashenko marked 3 decades in power last year, and his political opponents have denounced the tightly orchestrated presidential election on the 26th of January as a farce. The Belarus Central Election Commission announced Lukashenko won almost 87% of the vote after a campaign in which 4 token challengers on the ballot all praised his rule. 87% of a vote almost guarantees corruption, okay? It's impossible to get human beings to agree 80% of anything, okay? Usually it's like 60% they agree, Also, I want to know how many people actually showed up for the election as well. Like, what was the turnout? 10 people showed up and they all agreed to vote for me. Okay, cool. Opposition members have been imprisoned or exiled abroad by Lukashenko's crackdown on dissent and free speech. Months of massive protests that were unprecedented in the history of the country of 9 million people followed the 2020 election and prompted the harsh crackdown. Over 65,000 people were arrested, thousands were beaten by police and independent media outlets, and non-governmental organizations were closed or outlawed, bringing condemnation and sanctions from the West. Yet again, all these things are totally, what did he say again? In the interest of his people, not the interest of him. His people want him to have a crackdown and arrest 65,000 people. Right. That was all what the people wanted. Thousands of Lukashenko supporters attended Tuesday's inauguration ceremony, where he denounced his critics as foreign stooges who were at odds with the people. Who are these people? Like his family? You don't have public support. You have no future, he declared. We have more democracy than those who cast themselves as its model. Belarusian activists say the country holds more than 1,200 people in political prison, including Nobel Peace Prize laureate Ales Bialysky, founder of the Vyazna Human Rights Center. The election was held amid a deep human rights crisis, in an atmosphere of total fear caused by repressions against civil society, independent media, and opposition and dissent, according to a statement released by Vyazna and 10 other Belarusian human rights groups. They say Lukashenko hold on power is illegitimate. Lukashenko has ruled Belarus since 1994, as long as it's been alive. No, and like I said, just say you're a king, dude. Stop lying and saying, I'm a democracy, people voted for me. Just say, I've announced that Belarus is now a monarchy. I am the first king of the new Belarusian whatever the fuck.
I'm king of the world.
Yeah, and then you can just, everyone will accept that.
Yeah.
Everyone will accept, you know what, that guy is a king. Relying on subsidies and political support from Russian President Vladimir Putin, himself in office for a quarter century, an alliance that helped the Belarusian leader survive the 2020 protests. Lukashenko allowed Moscow to use the country's territory to invade Ukraine in February 22, and later hosted some of Russia's tactical nuclear weapons. So they have nukes, and he's a psycho. Opposition leader in exile, Svetlana Tsikhanouskaya, who fled Belarus under government pressure after running against Lukashenko in 2020, vowed to keep fighting for the country's freedom. I mean, the thing is, this guy's such a tyrant, right? Even if somebody were to be voted in some miraculous scenario where he would allow himself to be voted out, it wouldn't do anything, right? Our goal is to break away from the Russian occupation and Lukashenko's tyranny, and to return Belarus into the European family of nations.
That's right.
Tsikhanouskaya said in a speech at the Lithuanian parliament. Some observers say Lukashenko could now try to mend ties with the West. Lukashenko already has been sending signals to the West about his readiness to start a dialogue and his desire to normalize ties in order to ease the total dependence on the Kremlin and soften Western sanctions during his 7th term, said Valery Kabalevik, an independent political analysis. Will they, though? Should they? I don't think they should. I mean, the fact this guy's been in power for 30 years and is acting like he has a democracy, I don't think Western Europe wants to breach ties with the guy. Or they shouldn't. I don't think they should. That's my opinion anyway. You got a haiku about this tyranny? The great dictator?
Oh, I do. Yes, I have a haiku about it. Lukashenko sucks is the first line. He sucks so much, comma, Latvia has a constant wind.
Of him sucking like a vacuum. Yeah. Hey, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Woo! We also give you a laugh because it's also funny. There you go. All right.
Lukashenko being 4 syllables alone. Yeah.
Yeah. Lukashenko.
Lukashenko sucks.
We don't have a funny mimicking phrase for his name, I guess.
We don't? We had to make a list of tyrants.
Russia's crony, I guess we call him. I don't know.
Russia's sycophant.
Yeah, Russia's lapdog.
Lapdog.
Anyways, you have to remind me of a song.
Remind you of a song. if he was Latvia's lapdog or Lithuania's lapdog, we would be
alliteration.
two-thirds to a headline. All right, so my story is about American politics. And there still is American politics, and unfortunately, we don't have a Democratic Party anymore that stands up and fights. We have Bernie Sanders. And
Who's
he's
the
not
independent, technically, so.
And we have AOC, who cannot be underestimated because she has a big following, and they're drawing huge crowds wherever they go. This is a shorter story that I found. Most of them are way too long and totally over-explaining everything, which I don't like. Prospect.org, even though I over-explain things myself, Prospect.org has the article. It's Micah L. Sifry. Since February 22, when Bernie Sanders, an independent of Vermont, began his Fighting Oligarchy tour of America with overflow crowd in Omaha, Nebraska. I'll learn to talk someday. It's scribble talking is what I'm doing today. Fighting Oligarchy tour of America with an overflow crowd in Omaha, Nebraska. Tens of thousands of people have flocked to join him. In Warren, Michigan, UAW President Shawn Fain, which is a great name because it's named after the Irish Revolutionary Army's political wing. He is, anyway. Anyway, UAW President Shawn Fain helped pump up the working class crowd of more than 10,000 wearing T-shirts reading "Eat the Rich" with Sanders' ally Rep. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Democrat of New York, opening the rally in Denver. A whopping 34,000 showed up on Friday, March 21st. Perhaps even more impressive, 11,000 came to an event earlier in the day in Greeley, Colorado. That might be the whole population of Greeley, Colorado. The home turf of Republican Rep. Gabe Evans, 15,000 came out in Tempe, Arizona. All told, in just 10 stops, more than 107,000 people have RSVP'd to attend one of these events. Faiz Shakir, who ran Sanders' 2020 presidential campaign, and who has come back to Sanders land to help organize this barnstorm, as his chief political advisor told me that 65% of those names are new to our list. But many have wondered about the end game of these rallies. Are Sanders or his fellow speakers asking anything of those who attend? That's a good question. Are they funneling supporters to actions that might make a difference in their communities or national politics? Sanders isn't just growing his already substantial list of grassroots supporters, Shakir said. His team, which is also led by senior advisor Jeremy Slevin, a former top aide to Representative Ilhan Omar, Democrat of Minnesota, has begun hiring full-time organizers to sustain this work in places like Iowa, Nebraska, Wisconsin, and several western states. In Wisconsin, Shakir and Slevin told me these organizers helping get out the vote efforts on behalf of state Supreme Court candidate Susan Crawford, who's in high stakes and high money race that has drawn the attention of Leon Scum. The organizing for Crawford, who is running against former Republican State Attorney General Brad Shamil. His name is Shamil. Shamil Shlamazel, Foster Fair Incorporated. However, Laverne and Shirley said at the beginning of their show. Anyway, that's totally neither here nor there. Anyway, Brad Shamil, or Schimmel, or whatever his name is adding labor focus to the pitch for her election. I'm sorry, the organizing, let's do this whole sentence as a real sentence. The organizing for Crawford, who's running against former Republican State Attorney General Brad Shamil, is adding a labor focus to the pitch for her election. The Sanders team is also looking at engaging new, energized Sanders supporters in other state-level policy fights, like a bill in Colorado would make it easier to form a union. But their main interest is targeting potentially vulnerable House Republicans. 8 of the 10 cities that Sanders has stormed through in recent weeks are home to purple districts held by Trump backers. There's your key right there. Swing the House of Representatives and let's get another good impeachment going. Seriously. Let's get this guy out of here. So anyway, maybe we can get the Senate too. So one thing that campaign wants to drive people toward is the local town halls, or real ones in the empty chair variety, that put more heat on those incumbents in preparation for their re-election battles next year. At this moment, people like Sanders and Ocasio-Cortez can generate political lightning because they don't have to change their core message at all. Shakir added that they would be looking for ways to strengthen local efforts like fighting an energy utility or predatory landlord. If you're trying to organize your workplace, or you're trying to get somebody elected who's a progressive, and now we've got something, he declared. So while the Sanders campaign isn't sharing the names it's collecting with local groups, if those groups are planning events that align with their priorities, like bird dogging those potentially vulnerable Republicans, they'll alert their list to those local actions. Okay. Sentence. The fact that Sanders' campaign is using these giant rallies for ongoing political organizing may not be apparent to many attendees. Nicole Sandler, the progressive talk show host of the Nicole Sandler Show, clever name, who attended his rally in Tempe, told me, "I didn't hear or see anything about local organizing." One friend of mine who attended the rally in Denver with her teenage son that said, while Ocasio-Cortez and Sanders both exhorted the crowd to find community and organize, there was nothing tangible that we're given out to plug into. And the rhetoric she heard about how the 1% are generally hurting the rest of us didn't make her feel any better. I didn't feel hyper excited. She said it was more a stark reminder of how many of us are screwed. Slevin agreed that it was possible some attendees weren't aware of the behind-the-scenes organizing on their way around the Fighting Oligarchy tour. At the beginning, he told me at some of the rallies, we said, you can sign up for more action alerts. I think we did that at the first rally, but since then, we have thousands of RSVPs captured from this, so even if they're not opting in the rally, at the rally, if they RSVP, they are on our list. He also said with each stop of the tour, they've reached out in advance to local leaders of labor and other activist groups, in some cases giving them speaking slots alongside Sanders. If you're an anti-Trump Democrat or a progressive right now with a clearly defined message, your grassroots base will reward you big time. And it's not just if you go on the road like Sanders. Visible opposition in the media matters too. As Kyle Tharp, an expert on digital politics, who writes the Chaotic Era newsletter, told me in recent weeks, Chris Murphy, John Ossoff, Mark Kelly, Bernie Sanders, AOC have spent significant sums on platforms like Facebook, Instagram, Google, and YouTube, mostly for grassroots fundraising ads. Murphy is noteworthy as he has spent over $1.5 million on those platforms just in the past month, and he is not up for re-election anytime soon. Plus, he's basically guaranteed election. He's in Connecticut. That these politicians are spending so much money means one thing. They're seeing a strong ROI in terms of donations, grassroots signups, and reflecting a whole lot of enthusiasm among the party's base. At this moment, people like Sanders and Ocasio-Cortez can generate political lightning because they don't have to change their core message at all. Elon Musk and the rest of the billionaires in Trump's cabinet make their case against oligarchy plain as pie, and people are hungry for visible leadership and powerful statements, as many Democratic leaders seem to be on their back feet. But Shakira and Slevin insist that Sanders doesn't want to just keep elevating his signature issues. If those 107,000 people who RSVP don't hear from us in the next 3 months, Slevin said, then we're falling down on the job. At the same time, he cautioned, we're not going to be able to lead on all these fights, but what we are hoping is that these rallies can be a funnel to start and let thousands of flowers bloom. There's your metaphor at the end there. What's your reply to that? There's your story.
I don't know. What is a song that reminds me of? I was trying to think of a song about like democracy in the USA, but that's not a song. That's a Bruce Springsteen like cover song.
I don't know, man. You got to think of a song. Yeah, good long story.
The problem with the remind me of the song is it doesn't remind me of a song. I have to Google one. And that's not it's cheating. No, it's cheating because it's not reminding me of anything. It reminds me of nothing. Absolutely zero.
Who made that rule? I didn't make that rule. You couldn't look things up.
It's not a rule. It's the factual statement of that reminds me of a song. Which it doesn't.
But you couldn't think of the name of the song, so you had to look it up. You can say happy birthday if you want. It doesn't matter.
Happy birthday.
It reminds me of this Don't Go Breaking My Heart by Elton John and Kiki D.
Here we go.
You don't give a reason.
You'll like this one. Boy, that reminds me of the song The Times They Are A-Changin' by Bob Dylan.
There.
Of course,
there you go.
The world is constantly changing and how people need to change with it. So You need to counter the change that the MAGA guys want to do and join AOC and Bernie Sanders on keeping progress going forward instead of backwards. Of course, have you ever seen that? This does remind me not of a song, but have you ever seen this? I saw a post, I don't know where, and it was the idea that the American Democratic Party is a lot like a gear. What, I can't remember what it's called, but you know how you have like a tooth from a gear and you have a little hook, and when the gear moves, that hook stops the gear from going backwards, right?
Mm-hmm.
The idea in this metaphor is that the Democratic is that hook, so they never push progress forward. All they do is stop it from going too backward. So that's this is not something I believe in. It was just something I saw on social media, right? The idea is the MAGAs are pulling us back, and then democracy is just the Democratic Party is just trying to stop them from going more back, and they don't push it forward, I guess. That's what Bernie and AOC are trying to do. They're trying to push it forward, get sanity.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Anyways,
I thought you could also use the Tom Sawyer song.
Tom Sawyer.
That line. Yeah, he knows changes aren't permanent, but change is. There you go. That's a great line from there.
Changes, yeah.
Changes. He says changes aren't permanent, but change is.
Yeah, change is.
All right, so spin the wheel.
Next segue. All right, you're going to have to give me a mixed metaphor. Oh, very close to a personal story, which we had plenty of that yesterday, I think.
An impersonal story.
My next story is about arming Europe. We talked about it a little bit, I think, yesterday or the day before. I can't remember anything because on Wednesdays I do nothing, so my brain thinks nothing. But we talked about the Netherlands trying to increase its armed forces to 200,000 instead of the current 80,000 or whatever it's currently on. And now we're questioning on Euronews if it's even possible for Europe to afford arming themselves for some sort of, hopefully, not long, prolonged conflict. That would be great, but it looks like it's getting closer to that for some people. This is by Julian Gomez. Europe has come to the conclusion that its American ally will no longer guarantee its security and has decided to massively rearm. How does Europe intend to accomplish this? Can Europe afford such a massive rearmament? The European Union is committed to strengthening European defense capabilities. The European Commission's Armament Europe proposal focuses on the supply of strategic equipment such as air and missile defense, artillery systems, missiles, ammunition, and drone defense systems. Military spending would be exempt from strict European budget constraints. If each member state spent an average of 1.5% of its GDP on defense, the total would be 650 billion. That's a lot of money. In addition, the plan provides 150 billion euros in loans for the purchase of defense equipment, predominantly manufactured in Europe. Additional sources of defense financing are currently being explored, including the mobilization of a private fund. The EU is also exploring the harmonization of requirements and joint procurement to ensure more efficient market and reduce costs, guarantee cross-border access to supply chains, and increase the competitiveness of the defense sector as a whole. In total, around 2,500 SMEs are active in the EU defense industry. Euronews visited one of these companies on the outskirts of Prague, the capital of Czechia. Every year, 60 employees produce 70 unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs. These UFGs can be used for both civilian and military purposes. They're currently being used for surveillance, communication, and reconnaissance operations in the conflict zones in the Ukraine and Iraq. The latest model has just received an important certification, which, according to Ladislav Semetskovsky, the company's CEO, should contribute to its faster deployment in NATO member states. The certification process, which involves over 40 specialists, took 5 years, explains Semetskovsky. In total, they proposed more than 28,000 pages of text and conducted hundreds of flights. That's a lot of pages. Did they read those pages? 28,000 pages. Damn. I can't even think what would that. That's not like a huge book. I can't think of a book I've read that maybe the Lord of the Rings is that long. How many pages does Lord of the Rings have? Maybe the whole thing, all 3 books, is 28,000 pages.
Ridiculous.
It's a lot of pages.
About
I bought a drone, by
1,050.
the way, in case all those military words confused you. We're talking about drones. And they're building drones, and they've got their certification. The company's revenue is expected to reach about 40 million euros this year. The company has entered into a partnership with European giant Airbus Defence and Space. Managers say that the UFGs will be manufactured entirely in Europe, but will they be relying on European resources? Because that's the other kicker, right? If you still have to import resources from other people, it might not be as easy to build them. I think the company like ours are very important for maintaining security in Europe, because the domestic defense industry can ensure the stable supply and operation of any technology, whether military or civilian, says Semitovsky. Cooperation with European manufacturers is therefore crucial for the European defense. But this cooperation has often frustrated them, managers say, and excessive bureaucracy and regulation have limited the signing of contracts that would effectively increase production and create more jobs. I think the biggest problem is that politics have distracted itself from what a truly innovative industry can do. And there's, let's say, a gap or simply a lack of dialogue with each other, claims Jan Sector, chairman of the supervisory board of Primaco UAV. And this can be a source of concern for the industry when it comes. For example, public procurement. We need a stronger and better communication between governments, research, development, and industry. This is quite common in the United States, and here in Europe we also get used and support such an approach. If we're going to be united in a European Union, yeah, you definitely have to start maybe copying some of the things the US does, since you have to act more like one big conglomerate country instead of a bunch of separate states. That, we're not going to tell the French about our drones. They're going to use that against it. They're not going to use it against you. We're in the European Union now. The European defense sector creates around 600,000 jobs. The new scenario could help achieve even more. But debt-ridden Europe really you're acting like nobody else is in debt. Like, yeah, the U.S. is in debt. The U.S. is in debt so much that they're still paying China for their debt, Everyone is debt-ridden. It's not only Europe that has to suffer under that. Anyways, can they really afford the massive arms buildup in the current uncertain economic climate? In Pilsen, Zdeněk Broad, assistant professor of international security at the University of West Bohemia, says that given the new geopolitical context, Europe has little choice but to press ahead. Or join the Russian Republic in 10 years, If you look at the Cold War era, NATO member states spent roughly 4, 5, or even 6% on defense. And they're only spending 1.5 right now. So they need to increase, if they want to match the Cold War era, they need to increase it by a little bit more. So figures like that are nothing new, something you can imagine. In the current context, of course, it's a bit complicated because the government debt is quite high. We find that more than 50% of European Union's members have, you could say, serious budget problems. So the question is, where do we get the money from? Explained Rod, who is also CEO and co-founder of the think tank Center for Security Consulting. We know that Europe is based on a strong welfare state, so we have to find a balance between security and the well-being we want to maintain. For example, you can raise taxes, which would probably be very unpopular in most countries. If you don't want to borrow more money and raise taxes, then the only option is to make cuts in national budgets, says Rod. Or just make more money, just really hypercharge your economic GDP somehow, and then just have more money. Why is that never the option? I guess that's the taxes, huh? Europe plans to set a minimum threshold whereby 65% of military components eligible for funding must be European. Okay. So that still doesn't explain where they get their resources from. Maybe they're buying from Africa, or maybe the Middle East or something. Turkey is in a weird buffer zone between the Middle East and Europe. So maybe they're selling stuff. I'm not sure. But that's for another story, I guess. Where are they getting the resources from? Where are they buying from? Because that is, if you don't have your supply chain, you can't build any drones for sure. So, what do you got a
mixed metaphor?
Yeah.
Yes, it's don't wait until the wolf is at the door to start mending your wagon.
Exactly. We already kind of are doing that, but that's very topical indeed. Yeah, that's a good one.
There you go. An apt. Where's my applause? I've been slowing the soundboard myself. So. This is the one story I don't need notes for.
Yep.
Anyway.
Let me roll my wheel. So I know what to say after your list.
Take my glasses. I don't need my glasses for this. And then, by the way, they just give me glare anyway. I hate the glare.
All right, I'm sure. Oh, bad pun. Okay, there's going to be something good in here.
Bad pun about 13. All right. So it's Thursday's 13. It's not the 13th, which is unfortunate. We could have done this last week and it would have been the 13th. Right? Or 2 weeks ago.
That would be crazy, though. The 13th, Thursday 13 on a Thursday on the 13th week. Yeah, that would have been insane.
That was 2 weeks ago. It was the 13th, so we missed out on that. But we're going to catch up with it. And then some with the best 13s. The best 13th. The hell you even talking about? We'll find them. Number one. These are not ranked. They're just on a list. So none's best than the other, better than the other ones.
But you can argue down in the comments if you think one is better than the other.
Really hard to rank these. Anyway, Baker's Dozen is the best 13, or not the best. I already just said it wasn't ranked.
It's the best, though. Yeah. Argue in the comments, guys.
The first one on my list is a Baker's Dozen. What's a Baker's Dozen? Well, it's when you get 12 donuts and there's an extra one. You have 13 donuts.
I mean, what's better than that?
Oh, yeah, especially if it's cream filled or it's an eclair or something. Wow. So Baker's Dozen, pretty much self-explanatory. Our number 2, 13 is the 13 phases of the moon. That's right. The moon has a 28-day cycle.
Right.
So there's 13 phases of the moon, which raises the question, why aren't there 13 months? Because the word months comes from moon, does it not?
It's the Romans' fault, I think.
Yeah, so there should be 13. Well, there was originally 12 months, and the last 2 were unnamed until Julius Caesar and Caesar Augustus decided to name them after themselves and borrow days from February, which is the only month is 28 days, but the phases of the moon, 28 days, also coincidentally, 28 days is the menstrual cycle of a human. Mm-hmm. So, pretty interesting coinky-dink there. But there's 13 of them, and there's 13 times 28 equals, you can do this on your calculator, equals 364. That's right. 1 day short of a year. So why are months 28 days and why is there 13 months? I don't know. I'm going to say it's superstition. Number 3 on our list. This is not a comprehensive list. This is not a ranking. I'll emphasize. Is Dan Marino. Dan Marino, what the hell is that? Dan Marino, American quarterback. Probably the best. And featured in the Ace Ventura movie. If you saw Ace Ventura, Pet Detective. The one
about the Miami Dolphins. That one.
Yeah, he was supposed to rescue a dolphin, and the dolphin turned out to be Dan Marino. So anyway, Dan Marino wore number 13, and he's probably the best quarterback to never win a Super Bowl. Put up great numbers, threw the ball over the place, all kinds of great stats. Couldn't get it done in the playoffs. So number 3, we're going to number 4, and this is athletic. This is going to be athletic based. For this section is Paul George. Like, who the hell is Paul George? Paul George, American basketball player in the NBA, who wears number 13. The reason he's not the greatest basketball player by any measure, although he's an all-star, multiple all-star. He wears number 13, and his initials are PG, so his nickname is PG-13. Love that name.
That's pretty
That's
great.
Why he's all right, so that's why he's on the list, other than being a really good basketball player. Number 5 is probably the most, the first genuine, unstoppable basketball player in history of basketball, Wilt Chamberlain. Wilt Chamberlain wore 13. And,
really? Okay.
Scored a still record 100 points in one game, all by his lonesome, 100 points himself. That's just amazing.
Insane.
Well, Chamberlain's 7'2" and impossible to stop. They had to change the rules of basketball. Wilt Chamberlain used to shoot free throws by taking a run and jumping in the free throw line and dunking it. That was his
Was
free
he doing
throw.
a hook shot? Is that what it was called? No, that was what
Really did.
Abdul Kareem Jabbar did.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Everybody does hook shots. It's just that Kareem's was called the sky hook.
Oh, that's what it was called. You're right. Yeah.
But Wilt didn't. He had a hook shot, but he was 7'2". He could just dunk it over everybody.
He just walked there.
Nobody could defend it. Like I said, they had to change the rules for free throws. Now you have to sit behind the line and shoot it from there. Back in the day, the rules just said you had to take a shot from behind the line. Okay. He would dunk it. He would dunk it because he was 7'2". He would jump and dunk it from a free throw line, which was made illegal.
It was a giant. He walked the whole field. Yeah.
They also outlawed dunking in college basketball for years and years and years. You couldn't dunk because of Wilt Chamberlain. So Wilt Chamberlain, number 13 for the Philadelphia Warriors and the Los Angeles Lakers. I don't know if you ever heard of San Francisco Warriors when he was there. Number 6. Another athlete, Kurt Warner. Kurt Warner, a quarterback whose story is interesting because he was a virtual nobody. He went in 1 year from being a virtual nobody guy in the end of the squad to being the MVP of the league and Super Bowl MVP in the same season when the starting quarterback got injured. So Kurt Warner, who went farther from that, he went from bagging groceries to the NFL Hall of Fame. Now that's a leap. He was an Arena League football player looking for a job, cut by the Green Bay Packers because they had too many quarterbacks, and he was out of work. And the St. Louis Rams gave him a job, and he won the Super Bowl. So Kurt Warner, or 13. Jumping off the athletic field for a minute, we're going to the number 7 on our list, which is the 13 American colonies. The American colonies, America sucks now, but back when 13 colonies were forming, it was a genuinely great, genius idea. The Constitution with the Bill of Rights and 13 united colonies, which had never been united.
Republic instead of monarchies.
Yeah, because when we say the best area of America was when it started, right? Because we had an idea, we just didn't know how badly we were going to fuck it up. Anyway, the 13 are on our list. Number 8, we're going back to sports, or we haven't touched on baseball. Alex Rodriguez. You know who he is. He was a baseball player who was dating J-Lo for, 5-6 years.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's a TV personality and a totally clueless one. Of course, he had great stats, and they were ruined by the fact that he took a lot of steroids. He got suspended for a year for steroids. Now he's a TV personality who's not really that great at that job either. But anyway, he was a great player and an interesting personality. I had to struggle with putting him on a list, but I was running out of numbers, right? I was running out of things to put on there. Alex Rodriguez, Warrior number 13, played for the Seattle Mariners, New York Yankees, and, of course, became, what do you want to call it, controversial at some point. He used to be the guy that said, Alex Rodriguez is doing it the right way, and then we found out he wasn't. Number 9 is turning 13. Oh, who doesn't remember puberty? Oh, what lovely years. Turning 13. In a lot of worlds, that is, you're an adult. In a lot of this world, unfortunately, you're considered an adult. You can go to work, by golly. And you can have children, by golly, in a lot of places. They do that still. So, turning 13 is a big deal, though, because what? You're a teenager.
Yeah.
It has teen at the end, right?
12 doesn't count. 11 doesn't count. Yeah.
Made up damn numbers. There's no 1 teen, there's no 2 teen, but there's a 13. So turning 13 is a big deal for everyone at all walks of whatever. 13 is a big one, man. The pubes coming in. That's a big deal. Number 10. Your voice changes, especially for males. Your voice starts to change. You go from my name is Bully in like 5 minutes, and in between you sound like a frog.
Is that what happens? Okay.
And number 10 is a suit in a deck of cards. Nobody ever thinks about this. There's 52. There's 52 cards in a deck. 52 divided by 4 is 13. 13 suit. 13. Why did they stop at 13? What an odd thing to do. But that's what they did. It's ace through king. There's 13 cards. Don't know why, but there he is. There's got to be a reason. Maybe somebody knows. But there's 13 in a deck of, not a deck of cards, in a suit. A suit. There's 13 diamonds, 13 clubs, 13 spades, and 13 hearts. If you have 13 hearts, man. Anyway.
I just realized if I made this list, I would put Organization 13 from a video game called Kingdom Hearts. Because they also have 13 members. But anyways, continue with your list. I just realized that just now when you're talking about hearts.
All right. Wow. Oh, there you go. It's because it's based on a deck of cards, no doubt.
Yeah,
right?
probably.
There's
Yeah.
13 hearts in there. Yeah. And number 11 is the 14th floor. That's right. There is no, there's a superstition. I don't know if it's worldwide, but you go into any building that's higher than 12 floors and you will not find the 13th floor. You won't even find room 13. You won't even find room 1313 for sure. You won't find room 13. You won't find the 13th floor.
Yeah.
Right, because they'd skipped right over to number 13 and called it the 14th floor, which is stupid. Of course, comedian Mitch Hedberg had a joke about this. If you're going to commit suicide, don't jump from the 14th floor. You're going to hit sooner. You gotta think about that. Think about that. I'm jumping from the 14th floor. No, you're not. You're jumping from the 13th floor, and you're going to hit sooner than you think. Not that it matters, because you're probably going to die jumping from that high. Just ask anybody who's worked for Vladimir Putin. Anyway. Number 12. The Fibonacci number. Right? I hope I'm saying that right. It's a sequence of numbers. Yeah, it's a sequence of numbers. They're the last two numbers added together are the next number. So it starts at 0 and 1. 0 and 1, if you can see that at all. 0 and 1. See that?
Yeah.
So, wow, that ring just gets bigger, doesn't it? Ooh, look at that ring. Ooh.
Yeah.
Anyway,
you can see it.
0 and 1. So the next number is 1. And if you add 1 and 1, you get 2. So if you had 1 and 2, you get 3. You had 2 and 3, you get 5. You had 3 and 5, you get 8. And you had 5 and 8, you get 13. So 13 is part of that sequence. Woo-hoo! So it's an important number for that totally arbitrary reason. Not important at all. Also, 13. The number 13 is considered lucky in many cultures, including Hinduism, and in countries like Italy and China. 13 is a lucky number, and the 13th day in Hinduism, the 13th day of a fortnight, is considered the cleansing day, or the day where you get rid of all the evil crap in your system.
Yeah.
So there's your 13 list of 13 things that are 13. And I did send you a video.
Yeah.
I did send you a video.
Oh, you sent me a video too? So, wow, okay. We've got all the things here. Okay.
13 video. That's right.
Do I have any bad puns about any of that? I hate that I get so involved in the list that I forget what my segue.
Bad puns? You can do bad puns about football, sports, baked donuts. You can say donut, make another list like that.
Here we go. I guess this is a funny story. I don't know if this will be one, but I went to a beekeeper to get a dozen bees. When he gave me the bag, I counted 13, so I said, oops, you gave me an extra. Now he said, that's a freebie. There you go. There's your bad pun. There's your bad pun about 13. Baker's dozen. I should have used that one from the beginning because the Baker dozen is the best one. That's why it was number 1 on the list. And you can fight me in the comments about that. Oh, man. Okay. Let's roll the segue wheel again.
Gotta have your puns ready, though. You got them ready to shoot, you know.
Yeah.
Okay, what's my little
It's still rolling.
Challenge.
Personal story.
Ooh, tough one. That's always a tough one. Okay.
All right, we're going into some culture news coming out on The Guardian. This is about video games, so I don't know if you're going to have any personal stories about this. This is by Keith Stewart, our The Guardian's local gaming nerd. After years of soaring costs and an ever-expanding map, open-world games are getting smaller, and developers are creating richer landscapes in the process. For more than 20 years, the action-adventure genre has been dominated by open-world games. They started in quite a constrained way, with titles such as Shenmue and Driver offering miniature cities to wander about in, but during the 21st century, they grew to encompass whole kingdoms. Now we have titles such as Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild, Elden Ring, Death Stranding that contain vast, highly varied environments. Minecraft worlds are reportedly 60,000 kilometers wide, and let's not forget space sims such as Elite Dangerous or No Man's Sky, which effectively contain whole galaxies. This is a design model, however, is starting to seem a teeny bit unsustainable. Not only is it astonishingly expensive to build a giant world, it's rumored that the forthcoming Grand Theft Auto 6 will cost the region $2 billion to create, but the market is also saturated with competitors, all promising many hundreds of hours of exploration. Is there really an unlimited supply of players willing to buy and play more than 2 of these a year, especially now that we're being incentivized to stick around through live service features? Talking about you, Fallout 76, such as regularly updated costumes, missions, and locations. As a result, major studios are beginning to rethink their approach to map design in large single-player adventures. Released in February, Avowed is the latest epic role-playing fantasy from Obsidian Entertainment, and instead of an open structure, the landscape is divided into a series of smaller segments, which open up consecutively as the story progresses. According to narrative designer Kate Dollarhide, her name is Kate Dollarhide. That's an amazing last name. A key part of this decision was being able to provide a cognate narrative that allows for more player choice. Pacing is really tough in open-world games, she told Xbox Wire. You never know where the player is and what they're doing at any given time. So having these zones that happen in sequence means we always know what content you've just come from on the critical path. In short, what the player loses in terms of being able to wander around wherever they like, the developers gain in taking control over how the story proceeds. Stewart enjoyed the structure too because it gave him a very clear idea of how far he'd come and made a very ambitious title feel manageable. Another recent example is Atomfall, an apocalyptic post-war thriller from a Rebellion Developments in which players must escape the quarantine zone placed around a disaster at the Windscale nuclear plant. Again, there are 4 main landscape areas for the players to discover, some of which are subtly locked behind narrative prompts. These spaces are fully explorable. You can wander the woods, explore a little village, clamber down in winding caves, but they're comparatively small. So it feels like wherever you go, you're going to find something interesting and relevant. Added to this is the lack of fast travel. You get everywhere on foot. So you really become embedded in these rich spaces. Part of the pleasure becomes taking new routes, being between familiar locations, checking out ruined country mansions or hidden gorges, leading down to a trickling stream. Stewart was reminded of how fun it was to play last year's excellent role-playing adventure, Dragon's Dogma 2, which was more open in design but similarly restricted fast travel across the map, providing only a few teleport sites. In this way, every quest really felt like a quest, something time-consuming, unpredictable, and dangerous, the sort of things games are really about. Now he wonders what the effect of the arrival of GTA 6 will have, whether other publishers will feel they should compete, as in spending upwards of $6 billion on making a video game, or if they'll just throw their arms up and surrender and head the way of Obsidian and Rebellion and make their little chunk zones instead. Stewart hopes it's the latter. There's still so much innovation to be made and contain explorable environments. Look at how much interactive variety has been teased from the wonderful Hitman titles. The way that interlocking gameplay systems involving player characters' abilities, enemy AI, and environmental factors combine to produce rich procedural narratives. Stewart never forgot a lot of the landscape he saw in Horizon titles, but he'll never forget knocking out a million tech bros with a giant fish. Yeah, so basically he's arguing. He remembers the gameplay, but he doesn't remember the environments. He doesn't remember where he was. I remember killing robots, but I don't remember where that was. This huge open world
Mhm.
place with mountains and creeks, but because it's so big, he just doesn't remember any of it. I don't know. I don't feel this way,
Mhm.
but I think the problem with a lot of gamers for me is that they play a game once and they never play it again. So that also doesn't help with
Mhm.
remembering anything. Right? I've
Right.
played Skyrim 50 million times, so if I see a screenshot of somewhere in that game, I'll be like, "Oh, that's by Markarth or something." I know exactly where that is because I've seen the game's open world for thousands of hours. I've played that game, almost 10,000 hours. I think I've played Skyrim. So that's just an example, right? A lot of people do not replay video games. They just kind of play it once. They say, "Hey guys, take that off my list. I played it. I paid $60 for this. I played it for 100 hours. All right, I'm done." But there's not a lot of people who go back playing the same game over and over again, or at least he doesn't do it. It looks like the variety that open world titles boast about doesn't have to come from sheer expanse. It can be much more granular. Take an intricately authored village over a vast wilderness any day because Stuart likes to get to know a place. If he knew a little town on Silent Hill or the docks of Shenmue, it's like a famous game designer Chappell Roan once put it. I want the world, but I'll take this city. I don't. Famous game designer Chappell. She's not a game designer, she's a pop artist, but I get where you're going with the British sarcasm there. So, there you go.
Hmm.
There's your little, I guess, editorial by Keith Stewart about open world games and how for him it's probably
Right.
better if they get smaller and more just what do you want to say? What do I want to say? Condensed. For
Condensed,
him
yeah.
and more condensed.
Abridged.
I mean, to be honest, the thing is, open world video games are fake. They're not real, right? If you go outside, I know. Watch out, gamers. Go
What?
outside. See the sun for a while.
Watch over that big glory thing in the
But
sky.
if you just go
It's
outside
everything.
and walk for like 3 hours somewhere, right? Nothing's gonna
Yeah.
happen to you, right? The truth is the open world is pretty boring. You're not getting attacked by robbers. There's not a cat
Right.
giving you a quest on the side of the road every 2
Mhm.
seconds, right? So that's kind of the problem when you're chasing this realism of an open world. Is that there isn't a lot happening because in the
There might be danger.
real life, nothing is happening to you every 2 seconds. But it's not a very fun
Right.
game, right? If you're just like, yeah, I walked from Markarth to Solitude and nothing happened to me on the way. That's a half a day walk in the real life. You walked for half a day and nothing happened.
And I found a nickel. I found a nickel at
Yeah,
mile
that's
12.
what's gonna happen. But
Hmm?
give
Well, I
me
have a personal
do you have any
story.
personal stories about walking in open worlds?
No, not about video games, not about walking, but about memory.
Okay, here we go.
I had this memory thing, and I've had it for a long time, so it ain't recent with my old age. It's I'll be listening to a song, even singing along with it. I'm driving the car, singing along, yeah, and as soon as that song is over and the next song starts, I completely forgot what song I was just singing. Completely out of my mind. I swear to you, I could sit there for days and days and days, and somebody would have to tell me what the last song was because I don't remember anymore. It's completely eliminated from my mind. Anyway, that's my personal story.
No, it's pretty good.
I don't know if that's a disorder or I think it's good, actually. It doesn't clutter my mind with a lot of useless information. What song did I listen to just now? It doesn't matter. It's over. Anyway, spin the wheel for this day in history.
Our final segue.
That clear my throat. For a lot of talking.
All right. Another bad pun for me. Take us away.
Bad pun time from history. Maybe get it early so you don't have to think about it. Let's go back into the mists of time to the year 1351. As part of the struggle between Charles of Blois, supported by the King of France, and John of Montfort, who was backed by the King of England over succession of their Duchy of Brittany, their knights waged the Battle of the 30 near Ploermel. There you go. So some knights, they had a battle on this day in 1351. 1625, upon the death of James I, Charles I ascended to the throne of Great Britain and Ireland. And
then he got his head chopped.
Not immediately. A couple of years later, he dissolved Parliament, and the Great Migration to the United States, or to America, as it was just called back then, the Great Migration to America began of Puritans and everybody else that wasn't Catholic or Anglican. Hauled ass to the United States. About 1629 to 1640 was the big immigration. 1814, at the Battle of Horseshoe Bend in the Topeka, Alabama, in the Creek War, Andrew Jackson and his 3,000 troops defeated the Creek Indians, slaughtering more than 800 warriors and imprisoning 500 women and children. In other words, Andrew Jackson is a piece of shit, and he should not be on our money. In 1886, German-American architect Ludwig Mies van der Rohe, whose rectilinear forms crafted a elegant simplicity epitomized by the international style of architecture, was born. Okay, way to go. Way to get born in this day. Didn't understand a whole lot of that. I understand almost none of that, actually. So, in 1915, American domestic Mary Mallon, better known as Typhoid Mary, was placed under quarantine in New York. We talked about this the other day, Typhoid Mary. Was placed under quarantine on New Brother Island, New York City, that lasted until her death in 1938. She spent 23 years alone on an island. A typhoid carrier, she was allegedly responsible for multiple outbreaks of typhoid fever. Typhoid Mary. I'd like to be known as Typhoid Mary. Her problem was she was a cook, and she was banned from being a cook, and then she went back to work as being a cook, which she never should have done, because that's why they had to put her on an island. It's like, you won't listen to reason. You won't stay away from being a cook for children and killing children. We have to put you on an island because you won't listen. Typhoid Mary. So, 1927, how do you start a name with MST? Mstislav Rostropovich, one of the best-known cellists of the 20th century and music director of the National Symphony Orchestra, was born in Azerbaijan. So it's happy birthday to him. He was born this day in 1927, 98 years ago. He was the director of the National Symphony Orchestra for Washington, D.C. from 1977 to 1994. In 1958, Nikita Khrushchev replaced Nikolai Bulganin as premier of the Soviet Union, and Nikita Khrushchev said, "We will bury you," and he was banging his shoe on the gang. And he was right. Hey, Khrushchev! You finally took us over. Way to go, buddy. You're a ringing success. Thanks to Trump and Putin, you've finally taken over the United States. Congratulations. 1963, American director Quentin Tarantino was born. Happy birthday to Quentin Tarantino. His films include, so he's turning 62 today.
Boo!
His films include
I'm a Quentin
Reservoir
Tarantino
Dogs,
hater.
Pulp Fiction. I like some of his movies. I just don't like a lot of the dialogue. To me, it's just like, it's a lot of his dialogue. People think it's clever. I think like, it's just too clever. People don't talk like that. Nobody talks like that. Anyway, including Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction, and of course, Inglourious Bastards and
Django Unchained.
Django Unchained, all the Kill Bill movies. And Pulp Fiction, of course, are noted for their style, violence, razor-sharp dialogue, and fascination with film and pop culture. Anyway, some of that's true, but he fell in love with his own concoctions. I think he gets a little.
He's an auteur, you would say, in a nice way.
Yeah. And he's always trying to remake old movies, which I'm not that clever. And he does these history biographies that aren't real history, like Inglourious Bastards. That shit never happened. Django Unchained, that shit never happened. It's just inventing things that never happened and adding them to history. So a lot of people think they actually happened. That's kind of crappy, but oh well. He's a movie maker. That's what they do. 1964, South Central Alaska was struck by a 9.2 magnitude earthquake. That was the strongest quake ever registered in the United States. 9.2. Wow.
Huge.
On this day, before. Not a lot of people living in Alaska, but I imagine some people died. In 1975, construction began of the Trans-Alaska Peak in Alaska. 1975, 11 years after the earthquake, Trans-Alaska Pipeline began, spanning 800 miles, was completed in 1977 at a cost of $8 billion, which in today's money is $100 gajillion. So I just made up a number, 100 gajillion. Anyway, 1977, two airplanes, a Pan Am 747 and a KLM 747, which is the Dutch Airlines, collided on a runway in the Canary Islands, killing 582. That's probably the worst air disaster ever.
No way.
747s, two of the biggest planes in the world colliding. Wow. On the Canary Islands, you would think, they would see it coming, but nope. Yeah, just terrible tragedy. Considering the people there were just flying around the world. Nobody lives in the Canary Islands. It's just a refueling stop. That's all it is. So just completely unnecessary. In 1998, the drug Viagra from the pharmaceutical company Pfizer was approved for the U.S. Food and Drug Administration and used for treating erectile dysfunction, or they call it ED. So happy birthday to Viagra, turning 27 today. In 2002, Milton Berle passed away. Milton Berle, who was a popular entertainer in the early days of television in the United States, came to be known as Mr. Television and Uncle Milty, died at the age of 93. So Milton Berle passed away this day, 23 years ago. In 2020, North Macedonia became the 30th country to join NATO. So they got their NATO patch. They can wear it on their underoos or whatever. And March 27th, featured event in 47 BC, Cleopatra was reinstated as Queen of Egypt. She just wanted to see her mummy. The legendary Cleopatra VII, Thea Philopator, aided by her Roman lover Julius Caesar, was reinstated as co-ruler of Egypt with her brother Ptolemy the 14th. This day in 47 BC, following a civil war with her brother, Ptolemy the 13th. He had Ptolemies all over the place. Mariah Carey, 13th, by the way. Isn't that interesting? Ptolemy the 13th.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You should have been on our list instead of, I don't know.
All right, ever. I think they just called every emperor Ptolemy at the time. Anyway, Mariah Carey's birthday today. Mariah Carey was born in 1969. She's turning 56. Wow, she doesn't seem that old. She was born in Huntington, New York, which I believe is in Long Island. Long Island. Anyway.
Long Island Day.
Gloria Swanson's birthday. American actress, silent movie actress. I could have that wrong. I'm not a geography major. 1950s birthday also of Julia Alvarez, Dominican-American author and educator. 1955 is the birthday of Mariano Rajoy, Prime Minister of Spain. We already covered Quentin Tarantino and Mariah Carey. They're separated by 6 years. And our days today, other than that, it's National Spanish Paella Day. That's that soup where you just throw what's left in the refrigerator in, and you mix it up with tomato sauce, I believe. So paella, like a gumbo type soup, I would say, if you know what gumbo is. Gumbo sounds exactly like what it is. National Joe Day. It's also National Joe Day. Shout out to Joe Biden and all the Joes out there, and the Jose's, and all the variations of Joe. Josephina.
Mm-hmm.
Jolene. Huh? Jolene? How about that one? Jolene. Anyway, it's National Scribble Day. And those are your 3 days. It's only those 3 things. If your name is Joe, and you scribble, and you love paella, man, it's your day. So those are your days. That's your nonsense, your spins of the wheel, your stories, your Thursday 13 for March 27th, 2025 on Before Paella.
All right. And reminder that it's the final day, but not the final time. You should be giving solidarity and supporting those struggling against racism and racial discrimination. Right. Stop that shit.
Right.
And if you see it, call it out,
Yeah.
because you can't control what race you're born as. It's all made up shit anyways.
Where's your segue?
Yeah.
Where's your bad?
Our
where's your
segue
bad
is
punter?
it's not really a bad pun, but it is a joke. So I will still use it. The most interesting thing about King Charles I is that he was 5'6" tall at the start of his reign, but only 4'8" tall at the end of it.
Oh.
There you go.
That's weird. What did he do?
Well, I was reading through
his
London's
spine?
history, and I thought it was interesting to learn what happened to King Charles I's head.
Oh, he lost his head. There's your bad pun. He lost his head.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
He lost
That's right.
his
He
head.
lost 8 inches of height. Oh, wow. That happened to all rulers, though. All rulers. They all do that, right?
No, I don't
Very
think all
good.
rulers are beheaded when they die.
Well, Charles I's grandmother was Mary Queen of Scots, and she was beheaded. He
All
was
right, what
beheaded.
about this one? What happened when Queen Elizabeth died? Charles became the
I don't
king
know.
formerly known as Prince. That's another Charles based. It's not a different Charles, but another Charles
the
based.
Third is he's the third. We have Charles the Third right now.
Charles, the king previously known as Prince.
Okay, let's crack it up.
I give myself a laugh. Okay. Give myself.
Sorry.
Anyway, this has been Allison from
soundboard.
the Netherlands, Roger from the west coast of the U.S. as we tie up another Thursday 13 on the 13th week of the year. We will see you guys tomorrow for the Friday's news dump to cover all of the news before the weekend, so you don't have to worry about it. We got you covered. So make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel and turn on those notifications so you know when we go live. Take care of yourself. Wear that sunscreen. Drink that water. Keep yourself in a regular temperature. Don't jump into a wildfire unless you're helping to save your town from a wildfire. And
Right.
let's go to our mic drop moment. 13. 13.
Here's Johnny.
We're either going to have really good luck or really bad luck today from all this 13-ness.
Glenn wrote a song for you, and I said, let's hear it. So he sang it. I liked it and started playing along with it and recorded it that night. And then after I finished that night, we were going home. He said his last name is Danzig. I said, hey, Glenn Danzig. Nice song.
Danzig, a heavy metal band, wrote this.
Yeah.
Or Johnny Cash.
I mean, he covered a 9 Inch Nails song sometime before he passed away.
I think this song was written specifically for him. So.
Oh, yeah.
Tattooed on my neck. When the ink starts to itch, then the black will turn to red. I was born in the soul of misery. Never had me a name.
Oh, damn.
They just called me
That's rough.
the number when I was young.
The 13th born.
Gonna find me a preacher man confessing all I've done. Or you can catch me with the devil playing.
Just against our theme, that 13 is good. Unfortunately.
Bad luck wind been blowing.
Well, according to Satanists, being, with the devil isn't a bad thing, because he was all about freedom. So.
I was born in the soul of misery. Never had me a name. They just call me the number when I was young. Got a long line of heartache.
The song would be really interesting with like a double bass. Metal. But it would also be interesting to hear him sing to a metal song.
Blowing at my back. I was born to bring trouble to wherever I'm at. I was born in the soul of misery. Never had me a name. They just call me the number when I was young. They just call me the number
The number.
The number.
Do another number, Johnny. All right.
This is the 13. The number.
More. The end.
Be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and notify buttons, and follow our other channels, Toxic Alley, History of Gravy, and Scratchy Old Records.